Hello everybody, welcome back to What's the Fluff. We've got these incredible interviews where we travel back in time and have a conversation with someone that we can't really have a conversation with anymore because, well, they passed on and God rest their souls. So hey, we're just having a little fun and we're mainly trying to spread their information, this info of people who have been, taken out and they just spreading their word. That's all. This falls under conspiracies of what's the fluff, and so a lot of these things turn out to be true. So I think there's nothing wrong with keeping the word alive, keeping it going, but also in time, being as respectful as we can, not to make anybody upset, but just having fun and spreading the word. So with no further ado, here's our first interview, see how it goes, and this is with Mr. Bill Cooper, famous in the UFO, region, the files there, that fan base would know. So let's have a little fun and pretend and see what we can gather. Mr. Cooper, are there more people waking up to the reality and listening to your insights? And how has your book been doing? Are you able to look at everything with a different point of view all these years later? And if you could go back and change anything, what would it be?
Yes. In fact, I never dreamed that I would make such an impact. When I first began what I'm doing now, which was many years ago, I was lucky if I could travel 1,000 miles and collect 3 people in somebody's living room, none of whom, by the way, would help me pay for expenses or anything else, to sit down and listen to what I had to say. And I did this many times, travel all the way across the country just to talk to 2 or 3 or 4 people in somebody's home, and put all the expenses myself. And now I can go to someplace like the Salt Dome in Salt Lake City and fill the place up with people who want to come and hear what I have to say. And I think the radio broadcast has had a lot to do with it. My book has certainly been the #1 underground book in the country for the last 8 or 9 years, and continues to be today. And I know that I'm really hitting the mark, and I'm really making people pay attention when the President of the United States, William Jefferson Clinton, names me in a White House memo, which Rush Limbaugh read on the air, as being the most dangerous radio host in America. To me, that was the most tremendous compliment that I could ever receive. Was worth more than $50 million in my estimation. And if I don't ever do anything more than what I've accomplished, I certainly have accomplished quite a bit in the way of waking up the average American to stop believing everything that he's told or taught and start questioning and using his own mind for something other than to hold up the top of his head. And I think that's happening. I think people are beginning to question and think and arrive at their own conclusions today a lot more than they ever have in history. Trusting people is what got us in this situation. And the whole concept that imperfect man can rule other imperfect men, and it's going to turn out all right, is the most ludicrous proposition that I've ever heard in my life.
I think a number of people agree with these facts. What advice can you give people who want to change and try to create a better world?
There are only 2 possible avenues of change at the present time. One is civil war, which we are heading toward right now. We're rushing toward a civil war in this country. And I foresee that is probably the most reasonable expectation that we can see happening. Not that I want it to happen. Not that a civil war is reasonable. But it's the reasonable conclusion after looking at the whole picture. The other is that we could somehow really educate the vast majority of what I call the American sheeple. These are people who are ignorant. Ignorant is not a bad word. It just means that they're without knowledge. If we could educate them and get them to understand that it is more important to stand up now and take a personal risk and educate other people and say that this has all got to stop. And be able to select our own candidates and make sure they get elected no matter what the press or the television or anybody else tells us about them. Put them in office, people who will support, protect, and defend the Constitution, like the liars and the charlatans who are in office now swear to do when they take their oath of office, but don't at all. Don't even attempt it. In fact, if you could get the people to do that, then there might be a possibility of a political, peaceful solution. But I can tell you right there that that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen in your wildest dreams because most people spend the first 21 years of their lives trying to get away from daddy and get away from home and become responsible and have their own responsibility in life. They spend the rest of their life, once they find out what that really means, and trying to find a daddy that will take care of them and take all the risk away from them and make sure that they have a job and that their diapers are changed and they have a bed to sleep in at night and a place to play and all of that kind of stuff, just like every other child in the world. And to stand up and be responsible and take a risk means that they're not going to find that. That's why socialism is so attractive to the vast majority of any people, not just Americans, but any people. It promises that they're going to have a daddy again who's going to take care of them. If they'll just give up all their rights and all their liberties, daddy will take care of them. And so that's what people are looking for. And you can see it in your daily life. That's the way they vote. That's what they want. They don't want to take personal responsibility. They don't want to take a risk. They're afraid of getting on a list. I've had people tell me to my face, Bill, I know all about this stuff, but I can't help you because I don't want to get on anybody's list.
Looking at other countries, do you find any other social, economic, or political paths we could take, or ways we could try and fix things? Are there any systems in place now that seem to be working and could work for us and for everybody worldwide?
No, I don't. As a matter of fact, up until we began to take this left turn into socialism, the United States was the great light of the world, so to speak. We were the only free people who had ever existed in the entire history of humanity. We like to talk about our great heritage from England. The English were never free. They're not free today. They don't have freedom of speech. They don't have any of the freedoms that we've always had and cherished. In the history of the whole human race, the only people that have ever lived on this planet who have ever truly been free, the ultimate achievement of all humankind was to accept the individual as a king or queen in his or her own right, being responsible and having all of the freedom and liberties that they could possibly imagine right here in this country. And we created a government that was supposed to have a balance of power and was limited, strictly limited by the Constitution, and only given a very few powers in order to protect the freedom of the common man. That's all gone now. I mean, that's like you hear these politicians in Washington today talking about how the Constitution is an outdated document penned over 200 years ago by a bunch of doddering old men who did not understand the complexities of the modern age. They won't tell you what you should already know, is that the document is not an outdated old document. It is a living Constitution. It has within it the means for change if the people desire that it be changed. But the people don't desire that, so they just go ahead and throw it in the trash can anyway and go about their business doing anything that they want to do. While Joe Blow on the street doesn't even know that it's happening because he's never read the document that guarantees his freedom in his whole life.
Thank you for joining us. It's good to have you here.